I love ice cream. As a matter of fact, one girlfriend accused me of having a fetish for ice cream. I don't think she used the word right, but I do love ice cream. And I have at times had enough ice cream that it's kind of made me sick. And I realized I shouldn't have gotten the large when I could have gotten the medium. I'd like to talk to you today about gluttony. It's said there are actual patterns to when you can tell like a society is going to fail. And one of the last signs is in abundance before, for instance, the fall of the Roman Empire was overweight, gluttonous, overweight people, because we had so much abundance. So we had a lot of food. It's easy to eat. So when you watch the weight of a culture going up, you know that our fall is not very far. So many things I could say in this video about how we get so used to our comforts that we don't know how to endure in the pains, and that would lead to it. So I'd like to talk today about another one of the couplings in the deadly sins and the virtues. As I said in my previous video, I've talked to priests and I say to them, well, Father, I'm not committing the big sins. I don't have any mortal sins. So we really want to dig deeper into becoming closer to God. And every one of us is sinful. So we have to find, where do I fail? Where should I be more often focusing? So I was given the task of looking at the 7 deadly sins. And gluttony, as this priest said to me, said, I rarely hear people say I was gluttonous. So exactly, what is gluttonous? Is it a sin for me to eat, ice cream frequently? No, it's not. But for instance, gluttony is that vice that wants us to give ourselves to self-gratification. It focuses on eating and drinking, but it's other things as well. So is it a problem having ice cream? No, it is absolutely not. But if I have it too often, too frequently, I make myself sick. I have too much. I'm a glutton for other foods. I'm a glutton for, even if you think in terms of things like drugs and addictions, these are a feeding of the physical senses, a feeding of ourselves. The opposite, the virtue, because remember, with every vice, it is the opposite of a virtue that the Lord calls us to cultivate. So at its base, these vices take us further away from God, and the virtues are to pull us closer to God. So the vices focus on feeding the flesh, and the virtues focus on feeding the spirit. If we learn to strengthen our spirit, we overcome our flesh. So sometimes it's easier just to not feed the flesh, literally in terms of gluttony, but in terms of all these vices. If we are saying, go get thee behind me, Satan, and I talk to my flesh and say, I'm not going to let my flesh overtake, control my spirit. So in order to minimize or get rid of the vice of gluttony, one should focus on the virtue of temperance. Temperance is our ability to control ourselves and these desires. So the other day I went, and very real. I'm sorry if I'm talking about the ice cream. I really do like it. But the other day I went to Dairy Queen, and I know they've got the mini, the small, and the medium. And then I know that the small doesn't seem like enough, and the medium is always just a little bit too much, but I also don't like to waste. But I went in and I told myself, Christine, get the small, get the small. Then maybe a small step, but look, I'm human, and I know you are as well. I don't want anyone out there thinking that I'm here perfect, because I'm not, nor that I'm judging you. But I can give you some tips and strategies how I try to overcome so that you can as well. I'm also very good at cold turkey. I just do all or nothing. But that gets difficult for many people. I need to learn how to be temperate, how to have something, because God has blessed us with ice cream. It's one of God's greatest creations, and I pray it's in heaven. But he doesn't want us to make it our God. He doesn't want us to focus on it. He doesn't want us to take pleasure in it so much that we don't take pleasure in God, that we focus on that thing, that item, that drug, that meal, that anything with which we are consuming too much of. If you strengthen your spirit in this area, in the area of any of these virtues over these vices, when the times of trial and difficulty come in any area of your life, and your spirit has been strengthened, you've been going to a spiritual gym, you've been working out your spirit, you will be more likely to overcome the dark times. I talked to a priest at my local church here, and we talked about this topic. And he was saying, if you want to train yourself in temperance, do little things. Instead of taking the parking spot closest to the opening of the church or the grocery store or wherever, he said, park as far away as you can and walk. Instead of taking the biggest piece of pie, take it and serve it to someone else and save for yourself the smallest, or say none. In small decisions, we can learn to tell ourselves, I don't need it. I'll go last. I'll go not at all. But this isn't just about, okay, spirit over flesh, though that is huge. But to the degree that spirit over flesh says, I want to focus on nothing more than God. I want to draw closer to God. And in doing so, I'm increasing my virtues. I mean, can you think of other times when temperance comes in handy? Are you a talker? Do you talk too much? Do you talk right away? Do you not listen to other people? That's a habit I always had, and I still struggled, but I'm doing better, but I still struggle. Temperance says that you want to talk more and listen less. That's basically a way of putting yourself first, even if you're not consciously thinking that. I would always be like, well, I'm so excited. I want to tell you what's in my mind. And I wasn't thinking about hurting you or stopping you from being heard. It really wasn't an ugly thought in my head. But at its core then, once I had to parse it and think about it, it meant, if I'm speaking, you're not. What if you had something important that you wanted to say, but you weren't able to say because either I was talking too much or I talked so much that you forgot it? So temperance is such a gift. I can learn that when someone's really angering me and I just want to haul off and throat punch them. Temperance has me think, no, what's going on in their life? Maybe they're having a rough day. Or maybe they are being a big fat jerk. But I'm going to leave them for God to deal with. Temperance is such a beautiful thing. I teach it to my standers all the time. Their prodigal spouses send them a nasty text or a phone call. It's like, you're the worst spouse ever. I never loved you, blah, blah, blah. And they want to lash out with something equally as mean or hurtful, or even just defend themselves. But when I teach them God's gift of temperance, you hold back. Don't say that what you're thinking. Don't respond to the hurt and pain and ugliness with hurting ugliness. And that temperance makes you look more virtuous. That temperance is attractive because the average human with untrained flesh, with uncontrolled flesh, just do everything. We are victims of our emotions and our passions. But then they see you and you're controlling your flesh, your words, your responses. That is attractive, and they scratch their heads like, why is he or she not? And they may not consciously be saying that, but deep down it's striking them. Because remember, if you are virtuous, virtue only comes from God. And as you weaken your flesh and you strengthen your spirit and you become more virtuous, the light of Christ is that which is shining through you, and it becomes attractive. We must become more virtuous, to strengthen ourselves in these times of great chastisements that are right before us. We're looking at punishments coming, fire falling from the sky. We're looking at a famine potentially coming. We are looking at things that are being predicted by mystics and the Bible very loudly. You've got to be prepared for them. To be prepared, you teach your spirit to control your flesh. So how are you with gluttony? Is this a vice you've had to deal with? And if so, how did you overcome it? Let us know in the comments. And if it's one that you haven't overcome, get to confession. Just tell the Lord, and He will give you instructions. He will help you. He's dying to help you. You're ready to die to help you. He loves you, doesn't want to have to judge you. He will judge you, but He's so merciful. And if He sees that you're coming to Him to say, God, help me overcome this, He will absolutely do so. And He will remember that on your judgment day, that you tried so hard to overcome your vices. Now go out and be virtuous. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thank you for watching another informational Bacon Bit. And I'd like to remind you always to live your life sunny side up.